We got to witness the Los Angeles Clippers and the Sacramento Kings put up 351 total points in a double overtime thriller. Not only was this game the highest scoring game of the 21st century, this game was also the second highest scoring game in the history of the NBA, second only to the game between the Detroit Pistons and the Denver Nuggets back in December of 1983, which held a final score of 186 to 184. This game had the most points ever scored at the end of regulation, with a score of 153 to 153, which is a total of 306 points. And it's also the highest scoring game with 2 or fewer overtimes in NBA history. This game was arguably one of the greatest regular season games ever played. This game came on the heels of the Clippers picking up Russell Westbrook on the buyout market and snagging Mason Plumlee from the Hornets and Eric Gordon from the Rockets at the trade deadline, and the Clippers were within striking distance of the Kings, who currently hold the 3 seed in the West. The Kings are one of the top teams in the West right now, but the gap between them and as low as the 10 seed isn't large enough that they should feel comfortable, so both of these teams had a lot at stake coming into this game. So we ended up getting unreal performances from both sides, and it culminated into what I would consider a modern classic. So let's take a look at what happened during this game for both teams and what made this game so special. The Kings started off in typical fashion, running tons of stuff off the ball to get shooters open, like this play where there's the initial ball screen up top, while Kevin Huerter loops from the paint out to the corner, getting Paul George to bite on the pump fake before he cashes in on the triple. One thing that the Kings have is shooters, and even better is the fact that they're not afraid to take pull-up threes in transition, since the shot is actually reliable enough for them to lean on it. The Clippers are a little bit of an older team, so it was naturally going to be hard for them to slow down the Kings when they were getting out and running in transition and really pushing the pace. There were a lot of questions about how Russell Westbrook was going to look with the Clippers, but I think he actually showed that he's going to be super important for their offense. He did a lot to grease the wheels by putting pressure on the Kings defense as often as possible, creating chaos like here where the threat of his drive turns the defense inside towards the middle, which opened up the pass to Morris on the wing, and when Huerter switches onto him, Morris kicks it to Kawhi for the easy 3. The Clippers offense actually looked really smooth at times throughout this game when they were running some set actions, and it was some of the best offense I've seen them run this season, like this flare screen up top for Paul George, leading Plumlee to slip the screen to dive to the paint, which draws De'Aaron Fox's attention, opening up the pass to Westbrook in the corner. Westbrook is going to attack the closeout, which pulls the defense towards his drive, opening up the dump off to Plumlee for the finish. The Clippers did a really good job of putting as much pressure on the Kings down low as they could. The Kings don't really have a dominant defensive big man that can anchor their defense. They usually have to take a more group approach to slowing down opponents when they're at the rim. The Clippers did a good job of recognizing this, and they used it as a chance to generate looks for open perimeter shooters when the defense falls in on them. But on the flip side, the Kings took advantage of that same philosophy, considering the Clippers are without their primary interior defender in Zubac, and they also have the advantage of some really great cutters, so they were able to generate some open dump-offs like this cut from Keegan Murray into the paint for an easy 2 points. There were clearly some growing pains and the occasional miscommunication from the Clippers on the offensive end, which is just likely a result of a lack of experience playing together so far. But regardless of some of these miscommunications, Mason Plumlee's screening did a really good job of letting ball handlers get to their spots. Plumlee and Paul George are the only 2 players inside the arc on this possession, and the defense is trying to make sure that there's no option available inside. So while Kevin Huerter is angled towards the middle and kind of ball watching a little bit, Paul George is able to just swing it out to the corner, which leads to an easy 3. One major dynamic for the Kings is the 2-man game between Sabonis and Kevin Huerter, and a lot of the time it's really difficult to stop even for the best defense. They initiate this empty corner dribble handoff, leading to the pocket pass to Sabonis on the roll, forcing the help to slide over to prevent the shot inside, but what that does is open the kick out to Davion Mitchell, who cashes in on the 3. For a starting lineup that hasn't really had the chance to develop a ton of chemistry yet, the Clippers were able to execute some really high-level offense. Paul George comes up and he ghosts the screen with Westbrook dribbling right towards Plumlee. Plumlee slips the screen while the Kings are hedging against it, and Westbrook sends a beautiful pass to him on the roll for the finish. Now, at this point in the game, both teams were going to start pulling out their second units. The Clippers started running a lot less set plays at this point, and they started focusing pretty much on just driving and kicking and trying to generate looks that way. It had some success, but the shot making cooled off just a little bit. I want to point out now too that the Clippers didn't have a center on the floor at all, or at least not a traditional one. They're basically just going 5 out, but with the older personnel that they were using, the Kings were putting an even heavier emphasis on scoring in transition, and with guys like Fox and Monk, they were able to get to the rim and put a ton of pressure on them down low, making things really difficult for the Clippers to stop when they're pushing the pace. Even in the half court, without any big man really anchoring the interior, the Kings were able to use that incredibly potent offense to create inside. At the end of the first quarter, the score was 40-40. To put that into perspective, that means they were on pace to score 160 points. To have scored that many in the first quarter and then continue to match that pace is completely unprecedented. Now, even with Kawhi, Paul George, and Westbrook on the bench to start the second quarter, things did not slow down at all, with both teams using lineups largely composed of second unit players, continuing to rack up an insane amount of points. The Clippers kept generating look after look, busting out this Spain pick and roll with Westbrook, Plumlee, and Paul George to create an open look above the break for Paul George to cash in on it. The Kings used that same play from the first quarter where they had Kevin Huerter loop into the paint and pop out in the corner, but this time, instead of leading to a corner 3, the defense fell asleep, which allowed Keegan Murray to cut to a wide open paint, and he gets the pass for the finish. The big story for the Clippers in this quarter was the lack of much of anything in the way of rim deterrence. They just could not slow down the Kings whenever they got within 5 feet of the basket. Regardless, the Clippers were still able to match the pace of the Kings' offense throughout the second quarter, and the first half finished with the Kings sitting at 76 points and the Clippers sitting at 80. The third quarter ended up being the lowest scoring quarter for both teams up to that point, with the Clippers scoring only 37 points and the Kings scoring only 34. A big piece of the puzzle is the fact that the shot making that we got to see during this game was insane and a complete outlier performance in terms of knocking down difficult shots over the defense. Kawhi on his own scored 21 points in the third quarter, going 8 of 8 from the field and 5 of 5 from 3. He didn't miss a single shot the entire quarter. The third quarter ended with a score of 117-110, which is a final score that would be perfectly normal for just about any other game, but not this one. The tough shot-making masterclass from both teams carried over into the fourth quarter, but the star of the fourth quarter for the Kings was Malik Monk, who scored 16 points in the fourth to help keep the Kings in the game. At the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter, the Clippers were up by 14 points. The Kings would end up going on a massive 22-9 run to close out the fourth quarter, with Malik Monk hitting the game-tying bucket to send it to OT. In overtime number 1, Kawhi put on a defensive masterclass, doing his best to try and slow down De'Aaron Fox as much as he could, but once again it was Malik Monk that was stepping up and doing everything to keep them in this game. The Clippers had an opportunity to win the game on the final shot, but Paul George tried to draw the foul and the Kings did a good job of not fouling him, and Kawhi wasn't able to get the putback to fall, sending it to yet another OT. Now, during OT number 2, one thing I really like that they did is that they busted out this Spain pick and roll again, which ends up leading to a Norman Powell 3 above the break, putting them up by 2. But Malik Monk continued to play like a man possessed, getting to the rim basically whenever he wanted and knocking down a couple of threes in the process, leading all scorers in OT number 2 with 8 points. The Clippers still leaned on Westbrook and Plumlee to try and ignite some offense, getting into this really pretty empty corner pick and roll to beat the Kings on the hedge, leading to Plumlee getting the layup to fall at the rim. With a minute and a half left and only down by 4 points, Malik Monk trailed Fox in transition to get the pass to knock down the 3 to put them within 1 point. When the Kings trapped Kawhi up top on the high pick and roll on the other end, Kawhi finds Plumlee, but Metu tracks the pass to the corner and disrupts the lane to snag the steal. The next time the Clippers are on offense, they shut them down again, and when they get back down on the other end of the floor, De'Aaron Fox nails the mid-range bucket to give the Kings the lead. The Clippers did have a chance to tie it on the other end, but the only thing that they could get after the timeout was a Nicholas Batum 3, and the Kings would walk away with the win. Malik Monk finished with a game-high and career-high 45 points, De'Aaron Fox finished with 42, Kawhi dropped 44, and Paul George had 34. That's 4 insane scoring performances. This game was an instant classic, solidifying itself as one of the greatest regular season games ever played. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more recaps like this, be sure to let me know in the comments below. As always, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on the video. That's the #1 way to support me and help me continue making content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.